It has only been 8 days. Damar Hamlin is back in a Buffalo hospital, released from the Cincinnati hospital, moved to a Buffalo hospital. His recovery continues to be miraculous and wonderful and just a great story. But the National Football League and Roger Goodell are the authors of the biggest crock of crap that's going right now. They are stepping over each other to deny the truth about what happened that night. There are articles coming out now, because that's what happens. Once you know the player's going to be okay, or at least going to live, you can then start digging what exactly happened that night. Who was doing what, when, and where? Who was deciding whether or not the game was going to be postponed? Who was deciding about that big 5 minutes? You have 5 minutes to warm up. Let's get out there and play. Who's deciding whether or not Skip Bayless gets to keep working? All these things are happening right now. And we're learning that ESPN and the NFL are not on the same page. Joe Buck, who I've known for a decade and a half, 2 decades, he puts the C in credibility. If Joe Buck is telling you on the air that he was told that there are 5 minutes of warm-up and then we're going back to play, he didn't make it up. The NFL is trying to make sure that everyone knows that that didn't come from anyone. There was never a thought of doing anything except canceling the game. But now they're getting firsthand accounts from people. They're beginning to talk. They're beginning to get sources. The media is not going to let it drop because the media wants to know, thinking that you want to know, what was Roger Goodell doing that night? What was Troy Vincent doing that night? What was going on in the quote-unquote war room? The communication was happening with Dawn Aponte, who is the chief football administrator. She's a lower-level employee in the NFL. Remember I told you in MLB, we've got people on duty all the time, like doctors 24/7. Dawn was on duty that night. She's communicating to people at the field. Troy Vincent, who's the EVP of football operations, the former player, is now working in the commissioner's office. Think of like Chris Young, the now GM of the Rangers, who was in the commissioner's office but used to be a player. Raul Ibanez is in the commissioner's office, used to be a player. When you are a player in the commissioner's office, you are in the commissioner's office. You are not in the player union. You are not representing the players. You are representing the owners. The danger of putting a player in the commissioner's office is that they will still think like a player. The benefit is that you get to say to the current players, hey, we've got one of you amongst us. We should have total credibility because when a player's telling you something as a current player, a former player, they know what it's about. They understand the difficulties of your life as a player. So when we tell you about a rule change or about something that we're doing, trust us, we have your best interests in mind. Every player employed by a commissioner's office is there to be used, period. Not because they're qualified over anyone else. It's because they are qualified to speak to the existing players, to get done what owners and commissioners want done. Doesn't mean they're not smart, doesn't mean they're not good, doesn't mean they're not deserving, but let's not mince words about why they're there. Troy Vincent now is learning exactly what it means to be a player working in the commissioner's office because he is being put out to pasture by Roger Goodell in a shameful move. Roger, you're not going to comment? You're having your spokespeople not comment on this issue? You're letting it out there? You're okay with it out there that Troy Vincent was the one? That he was the one in charge, that he was the one not taking control, that he was the one unsure of whether or not the game would continue, that it was the players who were saying they wouldn't play, not the league saying you shouldn't play? Where are you, Roger? Because I know you were involved. Troy Vincent is not tying his shoes without speaking to you or getting permission from you about what the next move is. Your job as commissioner is to own it on days like this. You know you've got the votes from your owners, that you're not getting kicked out. You know that you run the comp committee. You know very well that your position is secure. Why is it so important that you make the media and the public believe that in your tower you do not bear responsibility for what happened last Monday? Why not stand up and own it? Stand up and say, we really wanted to get that game in. We had to take the temperature of the players, but we were not going to postpone it until we were sure that the players really wouldn't play. You think Rob Manfred wanted to take the All-Star game out of Atlanta? Remember that whole thing? The players, he took it out of Atlanta because the players said, we're not going to Atlanta. We're not playing there. If the players got to Troy Vincent and Roger Goodell and said, we are not playing, he's then going to say, you got to play. Play. What's the optics of that? Uh-oh. We're on the wrong side of optics. All right, we're postponing. My view from the beginning has been the minute there is CPR, the game is postponed. That's an easy rule. And if it had been so easy for Roger Goodell and the NFL, the announcement would have come sooner. And don't tell me that ESPN for 40 minutes had the wrong information. Because here's another surprise for you, folks. We listen to the national broadcasts. We're listening for mistakes so they can be corrected. When they're saying there's 5 minutes of warm-up left, if we know that's not the case, we are getting to the booth because, shock alert, we have a direct line to the booth. No way. We can reach the booth during a game? Do we have to scurry up the elevator and walk in? Hey, Joe, hey, it's Dave. Don't say that they have 5 minutes anymore because I don't think we're going to play. No, we've got a phone. It is so easy to get the right information to your broadcaster, which means if they've got the information wrong, you cure it. And if it's not wrong, you don't cure it. And if you haven't cured it, guess what? It wasn't wrong. A plus B is C. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I don't know about A cubed plus B cubed equaling C cubed. I'm going to have to ask somebody. Coca, is A cubed plus B cubed equal to C cubed? The reason I'm worked up about this issue is I don't want to see Troy Vincent put out to pasture. I want to see accountability. I want to see the focus being taken away from what went on that Monday night. Just own it. I've been in this position where I had to make decisions after an actual death of a player. I didn't get them all right. I met the media every day for days after that death in 2016, only 6 years ago, and I acknowledged, hey, I did the best I could. I had the following 10 decisions to make, and I tried to do them in order. I can't tell you about a funeral. I'm still trying to figure out what we're doing about today's game or tomorrow's game. I'm trying to figure out about jerseys, about honors, about routes of a casket. Give me time. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to retire his number? Are you going to honor him? I don't know. It's okay to tell people you don't know. It's okay to tell people you didn't get something right. I look for that in employees all the time. I am just this kind of boss. I'll ask a question of an employee and I'll know they don't know the answer because I want to make sure that that employee will tell me that they don't know the answer. How many times do employees give you an answer that you know is wrong? And if they just said they didn't know, you'd be fine. How many times I don't know something when our owner would ask? Just say, I don't know. I'll get it for you. I'll check. I was wrong. There's going to be a lot of situations here because you've got Sean McDermott, the coach of the Bills. You've got Zach Taylor, the coach of the Bengals. And their credibility is being impugned, and you don't want that to happen. If I'm the owner of one of those two teams, I want it to be clear that my coaches did the right thing. They were not going to play. They were taking the temperature of the players. They did not care what the NFL was doing. They were saying no play. It's interesting to see what Goodell will do going forward and whether or not they will stay silent, because here's what's going to happen. There is going to be more digging on this issue. There's going to be more sources you're going to read about. There's going to be a timeline put together because this is a story of national interest, not just sports. And Roger Goodell, who has just, 13 months, 14 months left in his contract, he's in a contract drive for an extension right now. He's fighting with Jerry Jones about whether or not he's going to get paid more, which he thinks he deserves. Roger Goodell has till right now to take charge of this story again. Take the microphone, take us through what happened, and acknowledge, because we'll forgive you, because it's stressful and difficult when you've got a player on the field. Take control. That's your job. Will he? Wait to see.